You ever notice this strange person in your life? They make decent money, they have a solid savings account, they're doing fine, but they act like the economy could collapse tomorrow. They'll spend $600 on concert tickets without blinking, but they won't replace a 15-year-old car. They max out retirement accounts, yet constantly say, "I don't think I'll ever be able to retire." They're not millennials, they're not boomers, and Gen Z barely notices them. They're Generation X, and once you understand what broke their trust in money, their behavior stops looking weird and starts looking brilliant. Generation X was born roughly between 1965 and 1980. They're the quiet middle kids of history. Not loud like boomers, not chronically online like Gen Z, not constantly analyzed like millennials. They just show up, do the work, save the money, and secretly carry a level of financial anxiety no one talks about. But their relationship with money didn't come from nowhere. It came from witnessing one of the biggest economic betrayals of modern history. Imagine this. It's the early 1980s. You're a kid riding with your dad to the bank. He's worked at the same company for over a decade. Same paycheck, same schedule. The banker knows his name. There's a pension, a savings account that actually earns interest, a clear plan. Work hard, be loyal, retire comfortably. The system makes sense. Now fast forward. It's 2008. You're in your 30s. You followed the rules, you went to school, you worked hard, you saved, and suddenly your retirement account is cut in half. Your home value collapses. Your stable company starts laying off people who gave it decades. That moment rewired Generation X's entire money psychology. The lesson wasn't "don't work." The lesson was, the system can break even when you do everything right. Trait number 1, anxious but hyper-prepared. Here's the first contradiction people notice. Gen X is deeply anxious about retirement, yet they're some of the most consistent savers. Study after study shows they contribute heavily to 401ks, IRAs, and emergency funds. They don't trust retirement, but they prepare for it obsessively anyway. That mindset has a name: defensive pessimism. You assume things will go wrong, so you over-prepare, and when the bad thing happens, you're not surprised, you're ready. It's exhausting, but it works. Gen X isn't paranoid, they've been burned before. Trait number 2, the original side hustlers. Everyone credits millennials with inventing the side hustle. Not true. Gen X was building backup income before it was trendy. But here's the difference. They almost never quit their main job. They don't chase freedom, they chase insurance. They watched coworkers get laid off with zero warning. They watched loyalty fail. They watched single incomes collapse families. So they built multiple exits, not to escape the system, but to survive it. That Etsy shop, that consulting gig, that rental property, that's not ambition, that's contingency planning. Trait number 3, no loyalty to institutions, total loyalty to trust. Gen X will leave a job without blinking, but they'll drive across town for a brand they trust. They don't believe in institutions, they believe in relationships. Corporations broke their trust. People didn't, at least not in the same way. So once Gen X trusts a brand, a product, or a person, they stick. Not because they're nostalgic, because consistency feels safe. Trait number 4, extreme savers, extreme experience spenders. This is where Gen X gets fascinating. They save aggressively, but they also spend big on experiences, concerts, travel, live events. Why? Because stuff fails. Homes crash, cars depreciate, possessions vanish in downturns. But experiences survive economic chaos. No one can repossess a memory. Gen X learned something quietly profound. In unstable systems, experiences have higher long-term value than things. Trait number 5, DIY finance, zero blind trust. Gen X is least likely to hire traditional financial advisors, not because they think they're smarter, but because they want control. They grew up learning from books, not algorithms. They believe knowledge is something you can build yourself. They research, they spreadsheet, they double-check everything. And even when they do get advice, they verify it independently. That's not arrogance, That's survival strategy. Trait number 6, strategic debt only. Gen X carries a lot of debt, but very selectively. They'll take mortgages, they'll invest in businesses, they'll leverage assets they can map to completion. But credit cards? Absolutely not. Unpredictable debt scares them more than big numbers. They don't fear borrowing, they fear chaos. If the timeline is clear, they're okay. If it's open-ended, they avoid it completely. Trait number 7, paper records in a digital world. Gen X uses technology. They also back it up with paper because they remember system failures. They remember lost records. They remember when secure didn't mean permanent. Redundancy equals safety. Digital plus physical. Cloud plus fireproof. It looks old school, but it works. Gen X isn't broken. They're adapted. They believed in the system. They watched it change. So they stayed cautious without opting out. They save, they prepare, they distrust quietly, and they keep going anyway. They play the game, but they never forget the rules can change. If any of this felt uncomfortably familiar, you're not alone. Your money habits aren't random. They're reactions to the world that shaped you. Drop a comment with a money habit you recognize in yourself or someone you know. And if you like understanding the psychology behind wealth, saving, and behavior, subscribe, because the next video digs even deeper. I'm Evan, and this is how money actually works when trust disappears.